Before Tropicana or Steinbrenner Field, before the Rays or Yankees ever set foot in Tampa, there was a different ballpark. It didn't have a jumbotron, it didn't have a skyline, but what it did have was soul. One that trained legends, hosted champions, heard the voice of a president, and gave a city something to believe in. This is the story of Al Lopez Field, Tampa Bay's forgotten ballpark that built two dynasties. Al Lopez was born in 1908 to Spanish immigrants in Ybor City. His father rolled cigars in a factory, but Al had other plans. He once said, "I hated the cigar factories. I vowed never to work in one." Instead, he played ball on makeshift fields carved out of empty lots. He made it to the major leagues in 1928, caught for 19 seasons, and later managed Cleveland and Chicago to American League pennants. In 1977, he became Tampa's first Hall of Famer. But his city honored him long before Cooperstown. On October 6, 1954, Tampa threw a parade. Thousands lined the streets for Al Lopez Day. That afternoon, the mayor unveiled a brand new stadium, Al Lopez Field, named after him while he was still managing. A ball player, a manager, and now a baseball field. Al Lopez Field broke ground in 1954 as part of a larger vision. A community sports complex on 720 acres of former military land, once home to Drew Field Air Base. The park opened in March 1955. Built for $287,901, about $3.3 million in today's dollars. Capacity, about 5,000. Field dimensions, 340 to left and right, 400 to center. No obstructing poles, no upper decks, just a concrete grandstand, an aluminum canopy, and open-air Florida baseball. It sat near the center of Tampa, east of Dale Mabry Highway, where Raymond James Stadium stands today. The Chicago White Sox moved their spring training to Tampa in 1955, making Al Lopez Field their home base through 1959. Stars like Minnie Minoso, Nellie Fox, Louis Aparicio, and Billy Pierce warmed up on its grass. And in 1957, Lopez returned, not as a guest, but as the manager to the Chicago White Sox. During one fiery moment, he was ejected mid-game. Later, he joked, "The umpire threw me out of my own ballpark." In 1959, the Sox broke camp at Al Lopez Field and reached the World Series that fall. The season started under Florida palms and ended in October glory. In 1960, the Cincinnati Reds replaced the Sox as spring tenants. They stayed for nearly 3 decades and brought a dynasty with them. Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Tony Perez, Dave Concepcion, they all trained right here in Tampa. The surrounding practice facilities became known as Redsland, and in the summers, that field stayed alive. You might know the Tampa Tarpons as a team that plays at Steinbrenner Field today. But let's talk about the original Tampa Tarpons. From 1957 to 1988, they were Tampa's team, a Class A Florida State League franchise that played its home games at Al Lopez Field, mostly as an affiliate of the Cincinnati Reds. But this wasn't just a Reds farm club. This was summer in Tampa. Kids chasing foul balls, autograph seekers leaning over the dugout fence, and future stars like Ken Griffey Sr., Johnny Bench, Pete Rose, Dan Gullett, and Dan Dreisen making their professional debuts right here. The Tarpons brought home 3 league championships, 1957, 1959, and 1961, and gave Tampa a baseball identity of its own. In 1988, the franchise was sold, relocated, and renamed the Sarasota White Sox. But their story didn't just end there. In 2018, the Tampa Yankees revived the Tarpons' name, paying tribute to the team that helped put Tampa on the baseball map. On November 18, 1963, just 4 days before the world changed forever, President John F. Kennedy stood before a crowd of more than 10,000 at Lopez Field in Tampa, Florida. He was there to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the first scheduled commercial airline flight, Tony Jannus's leap across Tampa Bay. But the day became about much more. Kennedy visited MacDill Air Force Base, addressed labor unions, and toured the city where throngs of cheering citizens lined the streets to catch a glimpse of their president. And then, in the heart of a humble baseball park, he delivered one of the final public speeches of his life.
Mr. Chairman, Congressman, Senator Smathers, members of the Florida Congressional Delegation, mayors of Tampa, St. Petersburg, ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to come back to Tampa.
That speech at Lopez wasn't just a moment in Tampa's history. It was part of America's last look at a president who inspired a generation. In the early 1990s, the New York Yankees wanted to leave Fort Lauderdale. Tampa was calling. Their first plan? Build their new spring home on the same ground where Lopez Field once stood. But the land was already spoken for. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers had secured it for a new NFL stadium, what would become Raymond James Stadium. So the Yankees pivoted, crossing Dale Mabry Highway to build Legends Field instead. They came close, but the ghost of Lopez Field stayed untouched. Lopez Field is gone, but it helped build the White Sox of '59, the big red machine of the '70s, and the spirit of a baseball town. It may not show up on maps anymore, but it left its mark on the game and on the hearts of those who filled its stands. When the Yankees came, they wanted that land, but unfortunately it was gone. So they crossed the street. And that, my friends, is a story for next time. If this story brought back memories or taught you something new, give it a like, share it with a fellow fan, and subscribe to the channel. Keep exploring, keep dreaming, and I'll see you at the next stop.